Welcome back, guys. Card Boss here, where we discuss cards, money, investing. Today's episode is a continuation from my earlier video about what I've learned from Marvel card investing in the last 1 year. Thank you everyone for the support and the great comments I had for that last video. Okay, in that part 1, I covered about the key points and observations I noted in the differences between Marvel card investing versus that of sports cards and TCG. In this second and final part of this series, I'm going to talk about what's the road ahead, at least how I see it. Okay, again, I want to remind people that this is from a strictly investment point of view and not as a true collector. You know, true collectors can collect what they like, and they have that emotional attachment over some of the stuff, which is actually nothing wrong with that. You know, investors kind of have to break off from that attachment in order to make sound monetary decisions. And so with that all the way, let's go. Okay, so we're going to start about talking a bit about part 1. So in part 1, I kind of covered the different characteristics of the different genres, which is sports, Marvel, and TCG. Now, each of these characteristics dictate the angle investment you need to take, and in my case, it was through several twists and turns before finding what works in the market. In this second segment, I'm going to roadmap several points which I think is important for both investors and collectors to be kind of aware of where I see the price trends moving towards to. Okay, so we're going to start by addressing the obvious: PMGs, precious metal gems. Okay, so that's what you guys seeing some here, right? So PMGs will continue to be the driving force of the investment side for this hobby. Now, Marvel OG collectors can like it or hate it, but that is where all the big dollars are being traded at the moment. Okay, I'm fully on board that Marvel is so much more than PMGs, right? But like it or not, PMGs will continue to be the go-to commodity for this hobby. But what do I think about the prices today? Okay, so in one of my earlier videos, we did observe a sudden surge in PMG prices from the low hundreds to the thousands, and I don't solely attribute that to just new investor dollars coming in. But in fact, some of these PMGs, especially for the mainstay characters, were really underpriced, say about 2 years ago. And though I haven't seen it for myself, it is said that PMG Spider-Mans could have been had pre-pandemic for under $500. And that's insane, right? When you compare to that PMG Blue Spider-Man BGS 9 that sold for $132,000 on Goldin. And I discuss the various scenarios and the reasons why I agree, that Spider-Man was priced so high. But what I don't necessarily agree is Spider-Man creating a rising tide to all the other PMGs like you see here. You just look at the aftermath from that Spider-Man transaction alone. Every big name PMG, right, is ridiculously priced at $10,000, $20,000, even $50,000, right? And I talked about some of them like just being too high. And I give you one example specifically. Wolverine 2013 PMG Blue has been sitting on ComC for $10,000 for the longest time. And in fact, it was on a 20% discount during the Black Friday sale. But it was then snapped up not too long after that Spider-Man got sold for $132,000, and voila, another Wolverine PMG Blue pops onto eBay with an opening price tag of $50,000, right? Speculators, opportunists, whatever, right? That's just insane. This is insane, right? And on the flip side of the coin, right, do you think that PMGs are in a bubble? Right? Okay, so it depends on how you see it. While the asking prices on these cards, these PMGs, are kind of crazy, right? There are not actually many completed transactions, at least on eBay. For those who are completed, are still pretty much down to earth, like the example whereby I saw there was a Doctor Strange PMG Blue in a PSA 7 slab that went for $2,800. Oh, and maybe it's because of speculation for a new movie or a genuine Doctor Strange fan, but that $2,800 was not a ridiculous amount even for a PSA 7. But then shortly after that, you have that pair of Doctor Strange Red for 2013 and 2015 that went for best offer of $8,000. So no idea, right? And then I think, was it a day after, what gives 2013 Red PMG for Silver Surfer $6,000, right? So the market on PMGs is just kind of out of whack at the moment, right? So, but question that you probably have in your mind will be, will all these prices crumble at some point, right? Yep, nothing stays up forever, and card prices have their peaks and valleys, but how low will the floor drop to? In my opinion, I don't think we'll ever see PMG Spider-Man go for under $500 ever again. Okay, and you might be asking, right, so is Card Boss still investing in PMGs? Not as aggressively as before. As I mentioned, people today are asking for an arm and a leg for PMGs, and it's just not easy to get reasonable deals today. It's not impossible, it's just a lot tougher. And as I pointed out earlier, it's still the currency of this hobby, so you always want to find opportunities, to see whether you could make some money in between. But it's not easy. Okay, so moving on from PMGs, that's a long one. I'm going to talk about Vibraniums now. Okay, this set has gotten a lot of attention recently, much thanks to my buddy from Stacking Gems, just showcasing his collection and all the alternative precious metal, i.e. the Vibraniums, right? It just so happened, right? And this set is from 2015. This set has a lot going for it. Nice looking art to me, right? Serial number parallels are 299, 99, 50, and a very limited 5. So it kind of checked the two boxes which I talked about in my last video, right? Serial numbering and eye appeal. And the card itself, the backs, right? They look great. So this is the Radiance, all right? And this is the Refine, right? And even they have another parallel called Raw parallels, and they look fine as well, right? And with the amount of attention that this set is actually getting, right? Investors can view Vibranium as the kind of like the cheaper alternatives to PMGs. Now, why do I emphasize on investors and not collectors? Well, Vibranium has been around for ages, more than 6 years to be exact. And you would assume that if you're a collector of Wolverine or Deadpool, you probably have all the different parallels of Vibranium and PC right now, rather than waiting for the price to increase or to supply to dry out before you start chasing. And because on these Vibraniums today have really caught on, stuff like this Gamora and this Rocket, which I previewed in my earlier video, was only about $50 a month ago, and now it's like $200. The top chase card would be the Ultimate Spider-Man, which Radiance out of 50 has climbed from, I believe, $1,000 at one point to now asking for more than $3,000. But unlike the PMGs, Vibraniums are still widely available, and because they're so cheap early on, you will notice that a lot of set collectors are kind of like breaking up their sets today and piecing them out for sale, save the few popular main characters, and those are being snapped up as well as a premium. So if you're a true collector and you're still waiting on 6 years to add some of these Vibraniums to your PC, you're kind of like in a buying at the moment. Okay, all right. So lastly, I'm going to talk about my final observation, which is a concept called value creation. Okay, so now for those of you who are not familiar with economics, value creation arises from transactions adding values along the way. So example, you buy something for $10, you sell it for 15, and then the next guy buys it from you for 15 and sells it for 25, and so on and so forth. So that's value creation. So basically for Marvel cards, which was predominantly a collector hobby for most parts, had very little value creation. And what I mean by this is that most people who purchase products or specific cards ended mostly in their PCs and just tucked away. So it didn't get transacted, right? But what we're seeing right now in the market is a lot of value creation is happening, and hence you see escalation in prices. You can call it what you want, speculation, hype, but you can really see that the transactions that's really happening all around, and not just talking about Goldin auctions, but you see what's closer to you, eBay, right? Lots of things aside from PMGs are trickling upwards. We talked about the Vibraniums, there's Battle Spectra Gems, 2017 Royal Foil, so much more, okay? And this phenomenon is that when there's a lot of value creation that's happening in a market, okay, it attracts even more investors and more money into the system. Of course, at some point, you see certain cards, they are priced so high, right, that many people are just simply priced out and just forced to look at some of the alternatives that I kind of mentioned earlier. Just take these two Radiance, right? So like I said just now, $50 a month ago, and now touching to $200. That might sound outrageous to an OG collector, but that's how the market works today. Would these prices be sustainable in the longer term? Of course, that's a whole different story and calls for a new video. But something to keep in mind is that the number of collectors in the Marvel market still outweighs heavily compared to the number of investors, where it might be the opposite when you look at sports cards. But what that means is that the frequency of value creation might be lesser, as there will be OG collectors who have already been priced out, not willing to shell out, a lot of money for certain cards like the PMGs, which are now in the thousands of dollars range. So therefore, if you are really investing into this space, you really need to figure out A, what the collectors really want, okay, and B, what are the next wave of investors coming in and what are they doing. Okay, so PMGs are very obvious, right? Everybody's looking at PMGs, but you got to figure out what's next. So in conclusion, 2022 will be kind of a strong year for Marvel as a hobby continues to adjust to this influx of investors and investor dollars entering the system. PMGs will kind of course, be the first go-to line, followed by whatever that's trending today, Vibraniums, jambalayas here. Collectors are now scrambling, perhaps a little bit upset that their utopia is being raided by capitalists and forced now to pay, tourist prices for bottled water. But that's how the world works, and I foresee this trend really ramping up in 2022. So if you think you have missed PMGs, there's still many more investment options out there, But aside from Vibranium and Battle Spectral gems, okay, you got to be doing a lot more research to figure out what's the next best thing to click. Okay, cool. That's all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this 2-part series of Marvel recap. Till the next one, thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe. Carboss out.